Tonight on Reporting Scotland, ministers withhold funding from councils in a row over teacher numbers. Some councils are already considering cuts, including shortening the school week.
Over the course of a P1 to S6, that's a year's less education than all their peers in Scotland. So my biggest fear is my children are going to be significantly disadvantaged.
Also tonight, the man killed in an explosion in Alloa on Sunday is named as 50-year-old Graham Green. Later in the programme, I've been talking to scientists who believe that Alzheimer's, the most common form of dementia, could be stopped in its tracks very soon. Are you talking about curing Alzheimer's?
Yes. Yes, 100%. Why not?
I've been looking into the groundbreaking research that could revolutionise the treatment of the disease that took my own mother for a new documentary. Hoping to be walking by Christmas, we hear from a teenage footballer who lost both his lower legs in a car crash.
And coming up in tonight's sport, Scotland fans are in Zagreb hoping to watch Steve Clarke's side end their long run without a win when they take on Croatia in the Nations League.
Hello, I'm Sally Magnuson. Welcome to Friday's programme. The Scottish Government is withholding more than £145 million in education funding because of a row over teacher numbers. It says the money's been earmarked to maintain teacher jobs, but the local government body COSLA disagrees with the ring fencing. This comes as local authorities are already implementing education cuts because of tightening budgets, while the Education Secretary says talks about releasing the funds are still ongoing. Our social affairs correspondent Lucy Adams reports.
Yeah, it was such a long walk back though, my legs were so sore.
These pupils from Christon High School are walking home. It's a 2.2-mile journey, much of which runs alongside a busy dual carriageway. Before the summer break, they would have taken the school bus, but North Lanarkshire reduced the service to save money. Parents want counsellors to think again.
I think I would support some of the council's argument that children get exercise before a school day is a healthy thing, absolutely. But we're talking about a 50-minute walk for most children, and some will be more than that. So the distance is part of it, but it's the safety, and it's the safety of the route.
It's not the only council looking to make savings. Leanne Tate and other parents in Falkirk are fighting proposals here to cut the school week by 2.5 hours.
If you calculate that over the course of a P1 to S6, that's a year's less education than all their peers in Scotland. So my biggest fear is my children are going to be significantly disadvantaged to everyone else in Scotland, and it just seems very inequitable and unfair that due to financial decisions, children's education is going to suffer.
Falkirk has deferred its decision on reducing the hours in the school week until December. It says it faces a serious financial deficit. The Education Secretary says she can and will act to force councils to maintain classroom learning hours if they try to cut them.
I've been working with them to try to get a mechanism whereby we can get this funding out the door. We've not yet been able to arrive at that. Look, I know this is also a challenging time for local authorities, I recognise that, but fundamentally protecting teacher numbers is a really important choice, I think, politically to make, because it protects outcomes for our children and young people.
Local government body COSLA says ring-fencing spending on teachers forces even deeper cuts on services. Experts say ministers' lack of flexibility over teacher numbers is not helping because so many other important services are being cut instead.
All the cuts, whether it's to libraries, librarians, support staff, classroom assistants, additional support needs, homeschool links teachers, all of those will impact the most on the children who have the most disadvantage anyway.
North Lanarkshire said it reduced mileage limits for free transport to save £3.6 million, and that this walking route is deemed acceptable. For the kids walking to school in the rain this winter, there is little reassurance. Councils are talking about deficits of hundreds of millions of pounds, and cuts are already underway. Lucy Adams, reporting Scotland.
The family of a man who died in an explosion at a flat in Clackmannanshire have thanked the public for their condolences and support. Graham Greene died in the blast in Alloa on Sunday evening. The authorities are currently investigating the cause of the explosion. Our reporter Stephen Godden has the story.
5 days on from the explosion, the damage it caused is still clear to see. The blast happened around 6 o'clock on Sunday evening, people nearby rushing towards the building in Kelly Place to help. 3 people were treated in hospital for their injuries. One man who'd been inside the top floor flat was pronounced dead at the scene. Today, the family of Graham Greene, known as Greenie, announced that the 50-year-old was the victim of what they called this tragic event. On social media, they thanked the emergency services and those who'd offered what they called overwhelming support and condolences. Police say they're treating Graham Greene's death as unexplained and that the investigation into the cause of Sunday's explosion is ongoing. Today, the Health and Safety Executive confirmed its involvement. Meanwhile, SGN, the gas distribution company, said the incident wasn't linked to its network, the gas infrastructure outside the property. But with the big question still unanswered, the effort to piece together what happened continues. Stephen Godden reporting Scotland, Alloa.
The First Minister John Swinney says he's been pushing Sir Keir Starmer for extra public money to come to Scotland in the UK government's budget at the end of this month. The pair held talks in Edinburgh today for the first meeting of the Council of Nations and Regions, a forum designed to reset relations between the two governments. Our chief political correspondent Lindsay Bewes reports.
Scotland's capital, the setting to bring together political leaders from across the UK. Chaired by the Prime Minister, the Council of Nations and Regions' first meeting focused on economic growth.
It's very good to welcome you here.
Sir Keir Starmer keen to move on from controversies about donations and the resignation of his Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, after just 3 months in the job. He ignored questions about her absence, despite her new role as his regional envoy. Instead, he stressed the need for a fresh approach to Scotland.
I said I wanted to reset the relationship. I wanted to collaborate so that my government delivers for Scotland. That's why I've had a very good discussion today about how we can work more closely together, about carbon capture, about energy, about strategies for growth. And it's been a very constructive exercise, and I'm really pleased that we're able to take these things forward.
The PM also held a one-to-one meeting with the First Minister. John Swinney said today's talks had been constructive.
We've got to see the fruits of that dialogue, and I hope we see the fruits of that by a budget that secures investment in the public services and in the infrastructure of our country, and significant progress on the urgent projects such as carbon capture and storage, which is so critical for the journey to net zero.
It's no secret the relationship between the Scottish and UK governments became increasingly fraught during the Conservatives' time in power at Westminster. Labour hopes this council will help improve relations with the devolved administrations and insists this summit is more than just a talking shop.
English mayors were included in today's meeting. The Labour Mayor of Greater Manchester says that's a sign of the PM's commitment to power sharing.
I've been the Mayor of Greater Manchester for 7.5 years. I've never witnessed a discussion like that. And actually, I never saw one when I was a Cabinet Minister. The UK represented around one table having a practical conversation about our economic future.
UK ministers will host an investment summit on Monday as their quest for growth continues. But that will take time to deliver. And with budgets due to be set out by both governments at Westminster and Holyrood in the coming weeks, tough choices on public spending remain the likely fault line between the two. Lindsay Bewes, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Our political editor, Glenn Campbell, is in Edinburgh for us tonight. This reset of relations, Glenn, will it make any difference?
Well, where you have power sharing, and that's what devolution is, you will always have political tension. I think the question, Sally, is whether that tension can be managed and at the same time you can get governments working together on areas of shared interest. Now, That had almost broken down between the SNP government here in Edinburgh and the last Conservative government at Westminster, following the big arguments over Brexit and whether or not there should be another independence referendum. You'll remember the UK government actually started blocking some of the laws made here in Holyrood from being enacted. The Scottish Government saw that as outrageous interference in devolved decision making. UK ministers would say it was a necessary effort to stop the devolved government overreaching. When Labour came in, they promised a reset to the relationship. I think today's meeting of the council was a symbolic effort or a symbolic illustration of that effort, but I don't think the council is quite the powerful decision-making body that Gordon Brown envisaged when he came up with the idea. Downing Street is determined that it won't be seen as just a talking shop, but the test of that is whether it can deliver outcomes that are of real substance.
Glenn Campbell, thank you very much indeed. Some of the day's other stories now. A second arrest has been made by police investigating the murder of 38-year-old David Graham, who was found with fatal injuries in a street in Uddingston on Sunday. Police said a 41-year-old man had been taken into custody. It follows the appearance of a 29-year-old man, Liam Kippen, at Hamilton Sheriff Court yesterday. The British Medical Association is recommending that resident doctors, who used to be known as junior doctors, accept the Scottish Government's latest pay offer. It represents 8.5% backdated to April and a further 2.3% from this month. Ministers say it makes significant progress towards tackling pay erosion. The BMA says there's still more work to be done. Former Hibs, Liverpool and Scotland midfielder Peter Cormack has died at the age of 78. Born in Edinburgh, Cormack was a youth signing with Hearts before he signed with their rivals. At Liverpool, he won 2 league titles, the UEFA Cup and FA Cup, during a 4-year spell at Anfield in the 1970s. Around 90,000 people here are living with dementia, a terminal brain disease that starts invisibly in middle age long before symptoms appear. Now scientists believe that a cure for Alzheimer's, the most common form of dementia, could be with us soon. But there's a catch. To get there, they need thousands of people with no obvious symptoms to undergo tests. I've been looking at this for a BBC Scotland documentary, which took me to meet Professor Craig Ritchie. He set up Scottish Brain Sciences in Edinburgh, where the research is being pioneered. The founder is Craig Ritchie. As well as being a professor of psychiatry and former NHS clinician, he's a scientist. Craig is intensely aware of how many of us are affected by dementia.
1/3 of people that have survived into their 80s will develop a dementia syndrome. Then there's another third of people, if you like, who'll be a carer of somebody with dementia. And if you're not in one of those two groups, trust me, you're going to be paying for it.
You left the NHS.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? How much of a sort of agony was that?
First thing that came to mind was seeing a patient in clinic in Edinburgh. And that person came in, they'd been on a waiting list for 2 years to be seen. And the thing that probably really got to me was the first thing they did when I apologised and said, I'm sorry, I was waiting 2 years. They said, it's okay, I know you're busy. And I thought, oh my goodness, have they dropped their expectations so low of what we can provide that they're not even accepting my apology? Central to our programme is the Iona cohort, which is a group of people, hopefully in due course several thousand people, set up just about 6-7 months ago. And what it is, it's an opportunity for people over the age of 50 to enter a study where they get a very detailed examination of their brain health. So cognitive symptoms, we do blood tests on everybody. And what this does is it gives us a huge amount of information about brain health that will help us and the participants to do more research, get involved in things like testing new drugs, And we're running this cohort, hopefully eventually globally, which will be the biggest database ever gathered in this area. I think where we want to get to in the future with early detection is to find a group of individuals who may have the diseases in their brain, like Alzheimer's disease, but haven't yet got any symptoms. They're in a high-risk group for dementia because they have a family history, for instance. So I think it's those groups who recognise themselves they may be at higher risk, who... Me! Well, there we go. Who say, well, actually, I want to at least I want to understand more about this. I may not sign up for it, but at least I want to know what this involves.
How much further forward are we?
Yeah.
What does practical success for families like mine look like?
Dementia should be an incredibly rare event. If you get an Alzheimer's disease, you should be going into that GP surgery with expecting to never get dementia. That's what success looks like, and that is within our grasp.
Are you talking about curing Alzheimer's?
Yes. Yes, 100%. Why not?
Curing Alzheimer's?
Why not? Why not?
Wow.
That's the plan.
Professor Craig Ritchie there. And if you're interested in finding out more, the full film will be broadcast on the BBC Scotland channel at 9 o'clock on Sunday night and on the iPlayer. A promising young footballer who lost both his lower legs after an accident says he's just grateful to be alive. Adam Gobieski was a passenger in a car crash in Aberdeenshire a few weeks ago. The 18-year-old is undergoing rehabilitation in hospital in Aberdeen. Our reporter Rachel Bell caught up with him.
As a footballer, Adam is no stranger to keeping fit, but now he's training for his greatest challenge yet, learning how to walk again. Last month, Adam was a passenger in a car crash. He doesn't remember the accident, just waking up in hospital.
Somebody was beside my bed, like this little lady, and the first thing I go is, where am I? I had not a clue where I was. And then she was like, oh, she explained what happened. She was like, I'm sorry to say you're in Aberdeen Hospital and you're in a really bad accident and you're going to lose your legs.
Adam underwent surgery to amputate both of his legs below the knee.
I remember just waking up and just seeing not just my mum, but my football coach and my priest and just everyone being there for me. I didn't know I had such great support or nothing.
Adam was a goalkeeper for his local junior team Devronside. His coach said he had great potential. On his first trip home since the accident, he watched his team play from his wheelchair. A welcome break from intensive rehabilitation at Woodend Hospital. Adam has daily sessions with physiotherapist Owen to strengthen his core and get him ready for the next stage of his recovery.
So Adam will be fit for his prosthetic limbs within the next week, with the hope that he will be able to stand for the first time on them within the next 2 weeks, perhaps able to walk on his own in 2 months' time.
I'm the same guy, but just a wee bit different, and I'm just grateful in everything that they're here to help me and get on my feet again, because that's all I wanted.
An investigation into the crash is still ongoing. With a lot of hard work ahead, it will be some time yet before Adam can go home for good, but he has a goal in mind.
I'm aiming for Christmas anyway, but hopefully before for me and for Owen, so he doesn't have to see my face every day. But hope the aim's Christmas.
Adam Gobieski ending that report from Rachel Bell there. 18 years old, Lewis. What an attitude.
What an inspirational young man, yeah, to be like that at that age. Amazing, really. Yeah. Amazing.
What you got for us?
Well, all attention turns to Zagreb now, Sally. Okay. Big game ahead, thanks very much. Hello there, yes. Scotland head coach Steve Clarke says the team hasn't regressed as they prepare to take on Croatia in Zagreb tomorrow evening in their latest Nations League match, one which Celtic winger James Forrest will no longer feature in due to injury. It's one win in their last 14 outings for Clarke's men, and you have to go back to September last year for their last competitive victory. But Clarke says he's not driven by stats, and facing tougher opposition comes as a result of success.
It's a nice price to pay when you have matches of this calibre, when you qualify for tournaments, when you get to the highest level of the Nations League. Obviously, we've done something right to be here. We're now finding a level that's a little bit more difficult for us. But we have to meet that challenge head on. And I think if we do that, we'll come out the other side with a better group, a better understanding of what you need to do at this level to get positive results.
And here's a reminder of how things stand in the group. 2 games played and 2 defeats leave Scotland bottom on 0 points. If they finish there, it would mean automatic relegation to League B. But with Croatia up next and then table-topping Portugal to follow, it looks like a very difficult task at hand. David Curry is in Zagreb and can set the scene for us.
Welcome to the Maksimir Stadium in Zagreb, home of Dinamo Zagreb and the Croatian national team. In fact, Luka Modric and co have been out there for their eve of match training session ahead of this Nations League game against Scotland tomorrow. A couple of thousand Scotland fans have made the trip to Zagreb, and it's fair to say that probably as usual they've travelled more in hope than expectation.
Ever since Germany, well, ever since we beat Spain, actually, it's gone downhill from there. We've just not been playing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's not any confidence with them, but there's no goals coming. We're not scoring.
We live and dream and hope. That's all we can say. So hopefully we'll put up a good performance and get a result.
We've got a great bunch of players. If we can get them all fit at the same time, we've got a great team. But if we lose 3 or 4 players that we have done, it's very, very difficult. But we could have come out the Poland game with a draw. We could have come out the Portugal game with a draw. But it's fine margins.
Well, there you go. Confidence not exactly high in the ranks of the Tartan Army. But you know what? Scotland really do need to get a positive result in this match to kick-start their hopes of having a realistic chance of qualifying for the next stage of the competition, the knockout stage, the quarter-finals. And a first win in more than a year, well, that would be nice too.
It certainly would. David Curry in Zagreb there. Well, Croatia are ranked 12th in the world and of course have superstar Luka Modric in their ranks. He'll be one of the standout players on the pitch. But the 39-year-old says he might not actually be the oldest on the pitch, with 41-year-old Craig Gordon likely to start in goals for Steve Clarke.
I know Gordon from before. Obviously, he's an excellent goalkeeper, and it's a big thing for both him and Scotland that he's still playing. And it's going to be nice that somebody's actually older than me on the pitch.
Sticking with football, and in their search for a new manager, talks have broken down between Hearts and their preferred candidate, Norwegian Per-Mathias Hugmo. So the club are now looking at other options. The 64-year-old, who led Rosenborg and Sweden's Häcken to league titles, is currently out of work, but is no longer in the frame to succeed Stephen Naismith in the dugout. And now the Scotland men's curling skip Bruce Mowat says that he took himself away from the sport during the summer after being embarrassed by his performance at the World Championships earlier this year. Mowat's rink went into the event in Switzerland as defending champions but returned empty-handed after losing to Italy in the bronze medal match.
Coming away with nothing, and then the way it finished for me personally, I was quite embarrassed of my play. Like, I missed a few shots that I really shouldn't have been. So yeah, I really kind of took some time out. It probably took 2 months of really trying to just take myself away from curling and just enjoy being around my friends and taking a step back and reevaluating. Yeah, I knew there was things that I could do to be better.
But hopefully we see Scots celebrating at the end of the weekend.
They're
Maybe
doing
in the golf,
well,
they certainly
as
are.
you were saying last night. Yeah.
And hopefully celebrating in Zagreb as well. And I hope you're celebrating tonight, Sally, because it's your birthday. I'm not letting you get away with that. Happy birthday.
That's just because I gave you some cake.
Exactly. Happy
Thanks
birthday.
very much indeed, Liz. Now, one of the biggest events in the Gaelic calendar gets underway shortly. The Royal National Mod is returning to its historic home where the first event was held in 1892. 9 days of singing, music and dancing will take over the streets and venues of Oban. Kim Carney is the lead singer of Man Ran, who will kick things off in around 30 minutes at the Corran Halls.
The audience is forever growing, which means that the events around what is quite a traditional week of competitions has actually grown hugely, and that's really, really exciting as someone who loves the Gaelic culture, but also someone who's been involved in it for most of my life.
And you can see the full interview on The 7, which is starting on the BBC Scotland channel shortly. And here in the studio, we have a man who also got the memo about wearing purple today, and he turns out to be our very own gold medalist from the Mod when back in 2021.
3 years ago, Sally, yeah.
Wow. Give us a wee burst of your winning song, come on.
Balachad bicka chwaled man, he girls forgot to laugh. Balachan bicka chwaled man, hechin stracha collag. I know many of you may have been singing in the rain today, but I'll bear you your eardrums any more of that singing because it's been a fine day of weather today. Well, we've actually had some areas of rain pushing in, but it's been fine across southern areas. You can see the radar, the Dumfries and Galloway borders. That's where we had the best of the sunshine today. But for many of us, it was cloudy with some pulses of rain, which will become more coherent in the northwest with a cold front spreading in here, spreading rain across all of us. Tomorrow morning, a wet start, then a plunge of cold air from the north. So we'll continue with mostly cloudy skies, some patches of rain feeding in from the west. That rain becoming more coherent, incessant. Argyll, the northwest Highlands, the islands too. Watch out for a wee bit sleetiness in Shetland. Staying drier mostly across southern Scotland. A few breaks near the east coast too. You may see the northern lights, but they're less active compared with last night. For most of us, it'll just be cloudy and wet, taking us into a wet start to the day tomorrow. Some heavy pulses of rain pushing south-eastwards on that cold front. Behind it, we'll see further pulses of rain feeding in. Southwesterly winds gradually veering round to the northwest, bringing a cold feel. Here's the numbers. Late afternoon, 10 degrees, central southern Scotland. Some pulses of heavy rain, still showery at times with a few brighter breaks. The cold air really digging in the Highlands and indeed in Grampian with a backwash of rain here, increasingly on its back edge, falling wintry down to 300, 400 metres. So watch out if you're on upland road routes like the A9. It'll all gradually, though, clear out to the east itself. And then behind that, well, we'll see cold conditions itself, and we'll see frosty conditions, -4 in a few places. But we'll tend to maintain the brisk wind down across the east coast and the Northern Isles, which will ease into Sunday morning. Perhaps a few wintry flurries in the far north, but for most of us, it'll be a lovely, sunny start to the morning before cloud expands in from the west. And with that, maybe a wee bit patchy rain at times coming into the west coast itself. A wee heads up for next week then, well, we'll see an upturn in the temperatures. We'll see southerly winds, and that will bring milder conditions. But we'll have a battleground between high pressure out to the east, low pressure to the west. So that will mean at times a wee bit rain may come in from the west, particularly western areas, spilling a wee bit further east, but there'll also be some good dry spells out there. And with the backflow into the south-southeast, it'll be downwind of the hills in the north, which will see the highest temperatures, maybe locally 16, 17. For most of us, though, the mid-teens itself. So for the Mod, yes, a wee bit rain at times and a wee bit dry conditions too, but a gusty wind, but it'll be dry between the showers. Anyway, that's it from me. And that's you up to date on the weather front. Oban bound.
And that's it from us. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.